We're going to dive deeper into creating an assignment, creating topics, giving feedback, just get into like more of the nitty-gritty of the Google Classroom that you are going to be using. So the first thing that you can do as a teacher is you can post an announcement to the stream. This is what maybe, if you want to share something with your students, you can go ahead and like I used to have during transition time, maybe I would send them to Wonderopolis. And so I would go ahead and say, start by reading this wonder, and then we're going to discuss it as a class. You can go ahead and do an announcement that way, and it will post to your students' stream. You could also have it where it was just posting to certain students. So maybe you're working with a book group and you want to tell them to read chapter 2 by tomorrow, and you only want to share it with those certain students. If you click down here, if you had your students enrolled, you could actually click on only the students you want them to see, and then only those students would get it posted, not everyone else. If you're working with multiple classes, or if you're co-teaching in other classes and you maybe wanted to make an announcement with just the students you're working in and they're in multiple classes, you can click on multiple classes and make that announcement across those multiple classes. So that's how you make an announcement. You could also make it where you schedule it to post. So maybe you have some overachievers who are going to check Google Classroom at night and you don't want this to post until in the morning. You can go ahead and hit schedule and choose the date you want it to schedule, and it will post that way. You can also add a link or a file. But since this is just an announcement, I kind of always like to keep my announcements just very basic. If I want to add like resources or links, I like to put that within the Classwork to keep it organized for the students. So let's look at the Classwork tab. So Classwork, I feel like as a teacher, is where you're going to do most of your work within Google Classroom. The create button up here, that plus sign, is going to give you a few options. You can create assignments, quizzes, a question, which is just a one question prompt that they respond to without needing to open a Google Doc. They respond right within Google Classroom. You could share a material, or you can reuse a post. So if you posted something, a math assignment, and you realize you need to go back and reteach it, you can actually reuse a post so you don't have to retype anything out, and it'll like repopulate the post for your students. And then you can add topics. This isn't a newer feature to Google Classroom, but it really will help in you keeping your students organized. So let's say I wanted to add a new topic and I want to do weekly thinking wonders. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that as a topic. And then I'm going to create an assignment under that topic. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to create an assignment, and I'm going to call this August 24th Weekly Wonders Journal. I also like to add emojis to the beginning of my posts with my students. I feel like it kind of helps guide them. So I'll go ahead and add that pencil emoji, because that means that they're going to have to do some writing. You don't have to use emojis, but I feel like they're like the visual cues of Google Classroom, and it really helps students understand the expectation. So my students are going to know that the expectation of this assignment is they're going to have a written response. I can go ahead and do instructions. So maybe I'm going to have respond to each day's thinking wonder and complete sentences, something like that. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm actually going to add a template that I already created. So I'm going to go ahead and add it from my Google Drive. The nice thing is if you just made the assignment, it's going to pop up as your most recent. So as you can see, it's right here, my weekly wonders. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert that. Big thing here is that if you want your students, you do not want it, if you want them to type in it or edit it or anything like that, make sure you make a copy for each student. So if you have it where your students can view the file, that means they can only see it. So that's really good if you're sharing like a news article, or if you're sharing maybe like your weekly schedule and you don't want them to have edit access. If you have students can edit a file, that means everyone can edit the file. Everyone is working on the same document. So you might want to do that if you have a slide deck where each slide is assigned to a different student. But in this case, I want the response to make a copy for each student. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. I also want it to be assigned to all of my students. I'm going to have it be ungraded. And I'm going to select a due date. So maybe I want it to be due, let's say I want it to be due on the 25th. All right. And I'm going to select my topic. You can also create a topic on the spot. You can assign a rubric if you would like. I do not have a rubric for this one, but you can actually create a rubric right within Google Slides, within Google Classroom, and use that to assess your students. You can assign it right on the spot, or you could schedule it. So like I said, if I have a few students who like to work ahead, I may choose to schedule this at a different point. But since I don't have any students enrolled, I'm going to assign it right now. And after I create this assignment, you're going to see it pops up under my weekly wonders. It has a little emoji right there. It's all ready to go. If I had multiple assignments, the nice thing about Google Classroom is you can drag things around. So I'm actually going to take you to a Google Classroom that I have a few things in to kind of show you. So this is a classroom that I've been working with. The nice thing is I can actually click and drag things if I want. So this is actually a kindergarten class that I used. I kept the assignments that we were working on up top. And then when things were older, I moved them down to past assignments so the kids just kind of ignored it. So it only drawed their attention to the one up top. But let's say I want to see how my students are doing. So we're going to use this classroom since I have students in it. I can go ahead, maybe I want to see how they're doing on their IC Dots book. I can go ahead and click on it. And I'm going to view the assignment. And I can see right here, I had one student who actually clicked turn it in. And I can see all of the students' work right here. And I can actually see it live as they are working. So I can go ahead and click on that student's work. And then within this, since Nathan turned it in, if I wanted him to go back and, maybe he put 4 dots here instead of 3, I can hit this return button and it will turn it back to Nathan so he can keep editing it. I can return multiples. So if there are multiple students I wanted to return, I could grade it here if I wanted to. I could also leave a private comment and he's going to then see it only on his end, and he'll actually also get an email notification saying I left a private comment for him. If I'm looking at a bunch of students' work and I don't want to go back and forth, I can actually hit this arrow button and it's going to take me to the next student. Or I can click the down arrow and I can select a student that way. So this just some features within creating assignments, giving feedback. You can also assign a rubric. And your assignments will always be on here. So one of the things I also wanted to show you is the Google Calendar feature. And this is going to be nice for if your students have a lot of work from you. So if they click on the Google Calendar, it's going to pop up. And they're going to see on their calendar, so if I go to the 25th, they're going to see that they have an assignment due on that day. It's going to actually populate on their calendar so that they know what is due when. And also they'll see it in their stream when upcoming work is due. So right now I don't really have any upcoming work. But as the 25th gets closer, that will pop up right up on their Google Classroom homepage so they know what work is due for them at that time. As a teacher, another very nice feature for organization is, let me just get back here where I was. My apologies. So if I go to my classwork, let's say I want to see all of the work my students have done within Google Classroom, but this view is not working for me. I kind of just want to see it in a file folder of sorts. I can actually click on the class drive folder, and it's going to take you to your Google Classroom drive that has all of their activities. So my templates, you don't want to edit that one, you want to leave that one blank. But like, let's say I want to go into the gingerbread houses that we did, and I want to see their work. Now here I'm able to see all of the kids' work. I can also share them with other teachers if I wanted to. I could share them with parents. So it's a really nice feature if you want to kind of just view it really fast and see where everyone's at. That Google Drive feature is also awesome. So those are some of the features you're going to use within Classwork. You can also create a question. So like I said, this question is going to be, it's just a short response that they can answer right within Google Classroom. They're not going to leave Google Classroom to complete this task. One of the features you might want to look at when you're doing this is, do you want students to reply to each other, and do you want them to be able to edit their answer? Usually the first few times I've done this, so I'll do like, you can use it as like a class culture building. Where's your favorite holiday? And I could have it where they can respond, or I can turn that off and they won't be able to respond. Same with if you want them to be able to edit it or not. You can also create a topic on the spot. So maybe I want to do a new topic where it's daily questions. And then I'm going to go ahead and I can ask it now, or I can schedule it later. I'm going to go ahead and ask it. And there you go. Now my question is there. They can click on it. I haven't had anyone turn it in, but when they do, I'll be able to see it right here. And it's also going to pop up on their class stream right there that I can click on it. I'll see their work, but they will see where they can actually answer it. All right. Let's see here. So this is pretty much the basic, like diving in deeper to Google Classroom. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your tech coach. We are more than happy to support you. On the next few pages, I'm going to include additional resources, including how to use emojis, to use those as visual cues, how to organize your Google Classroom to meet the needs of your students. So maybe if you're working with littles, thinking about having what's currently that they need to do versus what are past assignments. Some of the things I've used in the past is maybe having like a green check mark for things that are due and a red stop sign for things that are past that are no longer current. So things like that to kind of really help make it visually friendly, especially when you're working with littles. So like I said, if you have any questions, reach out to your tech coach, use us. We will happily support you with whatever you need with Google Classroom. It's an incredibly powerful tool to connect with students on a digital learning level.